You're listening to the Veterans Heritage Hour on the Vets on Media Network.
Good morning, Arizona, and welcome to all our listeners from around the globe. My name is Joe Brett.
And I am David Lucier.
And have we got a show for you today?
Holy cows. Fasten your seatbelts.
Fasten your seatbelts, man. Get the coffee, get the donuts, sit down, get ready, man, because we're ready to go here. We're taking a season in review here. We'll have had 20 shows here since February, and David and I thought this would be a great time to summarize what we've learned in the process.
Well, summarize, review, take a look at where we've been and what we liked about it, and look a little bit to the future, of course.
Sure, and what we've learned, because our guests have been phenomenal.
They have been. I mean, they're excellent, and they come from all walks of the veterans' life, and some a few non-veterans.
Yes.
So that's been absolutely fantastic. Making sure that we make that connection. That's important. I mean, that's what we're all about, is connecting these communities, both the
civilians and the
civilians and the veterans community. So we look at policy, we look at education, we look at economic opportunities. We look at health and wellness, and we've scanned that broad horizon. And I think I've been pretty pleased with it, pretty amazed. I mean, surprised in some places, but I think we've hit the mark.
I'm humbled with it because our guests have been so terrific, and you've been terrific to work with, and we've had a great time. And I think our viewers or listeners might, enjoy a little recap, because we put this together really last February 4th, and it was an idea that we had, and we pulled it off, and we're ending our first season probably this month in June. We have two great shows coming up, and then we're going to take a sabbatical here July and August and come back in September. So we want to introduce ourselves to our community, our listening and download community, and then summarize what we've learned. And I think it's been a great experience for me personally.
Well, and even before we do that, I think that it's important for our listeners and folks out there that they get to know us a little bit better. And because we don't, while we host the show, we don't talk about us, and we shouldn't, because we have guests. But I think this show may give us an opportunity to kind of introduce or reintroduce ourselves.
Reset, as someone said.
Reset. Push the reset button.
Yeah, push the reset button. Who are these two bozos? Is this Wayne and Garth? Or is this
Chong?
Is this Wayne's World, or who we got talking to us out here?
Dave and Chet.
Lieutenant
that's an old one. I got to reach back for that one.
I did a Huntley Brinkley mission in Vietnam.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did, with my buddy. It was a Huntley Brinkley mission where he called it in. I found a guy in North Vietnam, and I wanted to get, and we couldn't shoot north, and so I went up north, and I told my buddy to say he got shot at, right, and I'd take care of the guy up north. He says, "You're not BSing me, right?" And I says, "No way, man. It's my hooch mate." So he called in and said he was taking fire, and I was sitting on a truck in North Vietnam, man. He just moved. I saw a glint in the windshield.
Oh, yeah, reflection on the windshield.
And I said, "Wow, what's that?" It was a truck. Well, all the camouflage and all the stuff you would see out of a movie. And man, I had it. And he called it in, and we Huntley Brinkley'd it, right? And we kind of broke the rules, but that was our Huntley Brinkley mission. We did another one too, and I don't know why I'm talking about this, but it was the Turner Joy, the mission that started the Gulf of Tonkin incident, but we used it to get back into North Vietnam a little bit. A Huntley Brinkley again, right?
Yeah.
He called it in, and we dropped one into North Vietnam, and boom, got it just where we wanted to go. So anyway, that's a whole other topic of nonsense.
But one of the things that brings us around to Joe Brett. And why don't you give us a little backgrounder on you? How did you come to enter service, and where, and the time frame, and then what you did?
All that. I'll just summarize it quickly, David, because, hey, Watertown, New York, I was born and raised. And my brother went to the school, St. Bonaventure. I followed him. He went to ROTC.
Were you close to your mother when you were born?
Right next to her. We were even related. And Anyway, I always liked military stuff. My brother was always into baseball and I was too. But anyway, we went to this little school. It was a field artillery school. And, we were going to go ROTC as part of our education. And this little thing like Vietnam popped up right in the middle of all of our.
Give us a time frame.
I got out of high school in 64, got out of Bonaventure in 68. Had a great time there in ROTC. And of course, bingo, you knew when it was a field artillery school. So we were field artillery. We were going to go. I thought we all were going to go, but a lot of guys wound up in Germany or Korea. And so they must have taken the dumb guys like me and said,
they scraped the bottom of the barrel.
Here's a dumb guy no one's going to miss. We'll send him to Vietnam. And that's how I think I wound up over there, you know, and all the smarter guys probably wound up in different places doing more wonderful things. But I lucked out. I got to Vietnam in August of 68. I was with the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment in Fort Lewis, Washington for a brief several months. And, out running in the woods and all that. It was kind of fun. So I always liked the field stuff. The garrison stuff, I was horrible. I can't say I was a great lieutenant. But I got good at my job and I was a good observer. And I got to Vietnam and wound up being this aerial observer, which means instead of being on the ground as a forward observer with the grunts, I was going to do it from the air as an aerial observer and get I didn't know, but the flight pay. And then I had an adventure. While you on the ground had a real war, I wound up probably with an adventure. And that's why it stayed with me probably so long, the adventure of flying and all of the things that we did. I'm able to talk about Vietnam in ways that probably guys who suffered.
Yeah, watching green tracers come your way is a bit of an adventure.
Well, it puckers you up a little bit, but you don't have to go to bed next to the guy, right? And you don't have to be in the leach fields and, humping and up close and personal.
Well, you can use that dead guy as a nice little pillow before he stiffens up,
See, it's guys like
there's advantages.
There is advantages. That's a taste I never had to acquire. So I lucked out, really, and I flew with a great group of guys, and we were, the DMZ. So I had a wonderful job. And militarily speaking, for all you military gun nuts and everything, and advocates, and man, I shot every artillery round, adjusted 105s up to 8-inch and 175s, ran airstrikes, TAC air, and recommended we work for the S2. And so I had B-52s, that took 2. And by the time they got on site, everybody was gone, right?
The landscape had somewhat changed.
Well, the landscape had, but we had so many North Vietnamese spies in the headquarters of 24 everywhere. So by the time the B-52 shows, by the time the B-52 bombers showed up, on the infiltration routes, et cetera, these guys, it was a 2 or 3 day late. You just couldn't call them up and get them, as on call, unless you could.
No.
But so I had some losses, et cetera. But by and large, the gods of war were very, very kind to me and gave me a great group of people to fly with and be with and to
lifelong relationships.
Lifelong. I don't see them much, but I call them up and it's like that, right? Or we see each other and I admire them more now probably than I did then. And so anyway, but I had a couple incidences of loss that stayed with me, and I felt guilty about it, and didn't know I had PTSD until I moved out here to Arizona, and I met my wife to be, who got me to see somebody. And a funny story is Al Hoster is a guy who ran who was a vet counselor at a vet center in Prescott. Anyway, I saw him and my wife saw a little anger on the golf course, and so
9-iron took flight.
Over Pelican Hills. He says, "What's wrong with you?" And I says, "What do you mean, what's wrong with me?" I was dropping F-bombs. My anger. I had a place to come out because I was all inside, and I stopped drinking like 28 years ago. Thought that was it. But something wasn't right when I came back. I just didn't know what it was, and lo and behold, I had this thing called PTS, and I never knew I had it. And it was I had a life. I chased myself around the world and had an adventure, and worked for the state of New York for a long time and loved it, and then went to the Kennedy School at Harvard, and that was a kick. I'd quit drinking like a year and a half before. How does an Irish guy get to Harvard? Well, he quits drinking, right? He cheats. So I cheated and got into Harvard by quitting drinking, and and had the best year of my life. I loved every day of it. And that put me around great minds.
Mhm.
Everybody says, oh, Brett went to Harvard, and I'm very proud of it. But I don't brag about it to the extent that I'm a Harvard guy. I was around great minds. The thing that you find out being around great smart people is that you know what you don't know. You finally realize that you don't know, and you're okay with it.
Sure.
You put yourself in the continuum of intelligence, and you're like the ape like this, right? And then the other guys are upright. But you appreciate him. And he said, wow, that's really smart. And not only smart, continuously smart, right? You can, average guys like me probably come up with an idea or two, and it's kind of neat, right? Smart guys come up with them all the time, and they keep them running, and they follow up, and they track them. And so that has been my, that has been my fascination with ASU Center on the Study of Warfare, because it has, on the future of war, I should say, because they're very, very smart people, and you may agree or disagree with them, but boy, you have to listen to them because they're so compelling. And
we've got a few of those folks on our show,
and we're going to talk about them. But
Yeah.
that has been my passion for this work. And I also have to say, when I got home, we got into this body count, and I have to say this. The body count became how we measured our success, and if you
Yeah.
wanted to be a member of the team. And we were killing NBA soldiers, and they were trying to kill us. That was the game. But I got consumed with it. We were trying to get on the scoreboard that we had. And a funny thing, when
get the count,
the count, the colonel
get the
took
body count.
the colonel took the 5 of us observers down. He was the artillery group commander in the bunker on the DMZ, right? So in a place called Dong Ha, and he says, boys, this is what we're here for. We got artillery all over the DMZ, and we need to get the count. Yes, sir. Now be careful, but you got to get the count. Well, if you're an athlete or a competitive guy, you're not going to be the lowest guy on the board, right?
Right. Absolutely not.
And so my job as an artillery observer was also not only finding the targets, getting the map grid, and shooting artillery. The pilots, in tandem with these great pilots, the Cat Killers, the 220th Reconnaissance Aircraft Company, great guys. They ran TAC Air. They flew Marines as well, and so they could run TAC Air. So that little airplane, we could shoot artillery, turn off the artillery, turn on TAC Air, F-4 fighters out of Da Nang or Chulai or and then run them off. And then if we had Cobra gunships in the air, they'd come in and, mop up, so to speak. So we were lethal. If you shot at us at your own peril, and they didn't shoot at us, so we had to troll to make them shoot at us.
Draw a little fire,
Man. So that puckered us up pretty good. And after you're doing that for several months, you're not right. I can safely say you're not right, because you're always waiting, to get hit, and you have to pull G's to get out. You go down and you're trolling kind of slow, and then they start, they start hosing you down, and then the pilot honks some G's. Sometimes they have to go, get airspeed to go closer to getting shot at.
Yep.
Then they honk back, and then you're sucking G's in the back of this, oh man, and then you're waiting to get hit, and the bullets might be coming through parts of the airplane. And then you're waiting, you say, gosh, I hope it's a fatty part of the body, man. So you're sitting on your flag vest and you're waiting. You say, oh, what can I live with? Can I lose an arm? Yeah. Maybe I can live without an arm. Can I live without an arm and a leg? Oh, maybe. But don't shoot the jewels. That that's where the flag vest was.
Yep.
So after that, we were all a little ditzy, I think, but we got the count. And sadly for me, for some reason, I got fixated. And when I got home, for months since I got home, I got up in the middle of the night about the ones I missed.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's a sad thing. So I was not right, I have to say, coming in and out of all of that. And I didn't know how to process it. And I was probably a pain in the neck to a lot of folks.
Do you want to make a public apology at this point?
Well,
Or
I
you
have done it privately.
I've let
a
a
general
sleeping dog lie here.
No, I think somewhere along the way I made amends to everybody who I needed to, I think.
Good.
And if not, they can call in and get me. No, it sounds like, but
Yeah.
hey, going to war is not an easy thing. So I have compassion for people who do go, who do come back, who do have some difficulties, because I think, I thought there was something wrong with me. Well, that's the process.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Well, and I think that, and the process is true for no matter who you are.
exactly.
If you're a participant in a ground combat action, whether you are a friend or adversary,
Yeah.
The effects are all the same.
Yeah. The guy who took my spot, it's a funny story. A guy by the name of Tom Murray. Tom Murray went to Xavier, Cincinnati, also a field artillery school. I didn't know Tom. He took my spot. I met him years later. But Tom had to get the count. We had what we called the Ganella bread scoreboard. Barbara Hatch likes this. It was a bread company in Chicago, right? And they sponsored the Loyola Chicago basketball games. And the announcer would say, and Ajax coming over to King Coleman, up, 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 up. He stuffs it through like he'd stuff a turkey with a loaf of Ganella. Oh, Ganella, it's swell, fella. And the Ramblers are up by 2. And the big Ganella scoreboard lights up again. So we listened to basketball games. So I did this skit one night in our club, and and so there was an enterprising sergeant who went down to the bunker and created a Ganella scoreboard. So when we started ringing guys up, I hate to say it that way, we would say, and the big Ganella scoreboard lights up again. That's how we claimed the body count, NVA soldiers who were infiltrating. So we got into the body count, and that's where I lived. I was right there with it, and so that's a different place to be. But you had to be that way if you were going to survive doing that job. You had to assume this persona of you were your call sign. You were large at the bar. You were just bigger than life because, man, you were risking your life and you had to lay it out there
daily and every minute and of every day. And
so old Tom comes back and he's, they send him into Lamson 719. He got shot down like 3 times in a week, so he wasn't right. And but anyway, he's in Vietnam now, working in a school. He got a PhD and he's working for building schools in Vietnam. And he's going back to get a part. Something's wrong. And he's on a motor scooter in Vietnam getting a part for a school. And a scooter breaks down. And he's on the side of the road fixing the scooter. And there's some guys down in this little place drinking. Mm-hmm. And they look at the driver and they say, "Is your driver an American? Is your passenger an American?" And old Tom says, tell him when I was here, I tried to kill every one of these bastards, And the scooter driver says, "I can't say that." He says, tell him that. I wanted to kill every one of these bastards when I was here. And so the guy does. And these guys were all former soldiers, right? They all went, me too, and they all looked at him and they all drank. And so he sat and he drank with these guys, and that was their commonality, is the horror of it all. Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to go all that crazy, but how about that? How about that for a clock killer, right? Well, that'll get us kicked off the air. So Tom is now doing the right thing. So I think my attitude has been one of which those who think intellectually about wars and how we go and how we prosecute them and what happens to the veterans, the soldiers who do go, I don't think I'm an exception. I think I'm the rule, and to some extent. And I think the more we start talking about this kind of stuff, I think it makes it easier for those coming back that, it's hard.
Well, it comes up with, I think what it does is it brings us to the realization that we all have a lot in common because of our common experiences, and that there's some good and some bad about that.
Yeah.
And so we address those. And I think that unfortunately, as a community, as an institution, the Department of Defense and Veterans Affairs and even our own friends and neighbors really haven't addressed a lot of the things that we've experienced. And yet it was largely due to either their voting, their decisions, that elected officials that made these decisions for us to do what we did.
Yeah.
And so it's all connected. And those are the kind of things that I think we need to address. And I think we've the one thing about our show is I think we've shown that connection.
Yeah.
And we want to continue to connect to show folks that that's where we are in this thing, and that's what drives us on this show. And I think we've been relatively successful.
I do too, and I admire all of our guests. We're going to get to them. And David, when we come back, we're going to touch on your Special Forces career and your work as a contractor, and how didn't you get screwed up like I did? I mean, that's what I want to know. We're going to take a few minutes here. Are we off here, Adam, for a little bit? We'll be right back. This is the Veterans Heritage Hour. My name is Joe Brett. I'm with my pal David Lucero, and we're doing a little review, a little mid-season review here.
Everyone's going to need an attorney at some point in your life. I'm no different. Hey everyone, it's James from Vets On. Whether it was my last will and testament before deployment or my ongoing custody battle for my children during my divorce, I needed help, so I lawyered up. If you need help, I urge you to contact Capstrom Law Firm. Capstrom Law Firm in Springfield, Missouri services clients throughout the state in criminal law, personal injury, and family law. With over 13 years practicing law, Tom Capstrom understands both law and court procedures and how stressful they can be. Let Tom Capstrom Law Firm and his dedicated staff take the stress and worry out of a difficult situation by calling him today. We feel so strong about the work that Tom and his staff are doing that he'll be a monthly guest on the show. Tom is a veteran and a listener, for God's sake, so you know the guy is solid and will fight for you. Give Tom a call today by calling 417-864-0552 or email Tom at capstromlaw.com. And don't forget to tell him that Vets On sent you.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertising.
If you or someone you know is looking for a new job or career, you need to visit the pros. National Career Fairs at ncfairs.com. National Career Fairs hosts over 300 career fairs a year nationwide. The events are free and give you the perfect chance to meet some of the top employers in your area face-to-face. To find the nearest career fair to you, visit ncfairs.com. Again, that's ncfairs.com. What are you waiting for?
Veterans served us, now it's time we serve them. As a veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as a current military member deployed abroad, I would like to take a minute of your time to tell you about Patriot Hills of New York. Patriot Hills of New York is a nonprofit organization providing support to veterans and their families. They partner veterans in need with over 65 health and wellness organizations, community groups, as well as philanthropic foundations providing no or low-cost services. They've helped over 400 veterans through confidential referral services, assistance with veterans issues, employment placement, as well as educational opportunities. If you need assistance or just want to help veterans by donating your time or services, contact them at info@patriothills.org. Again, that's info@patriothills.org. Visit patriothillsnewyork.com for more information about their services or how you can donate. Our veterans deserve no less. We can give it to them, and you can help.
You're listening to the Veterans Heritage Hour on the Vets On Media Network.
Hey, we're back. This is the Veterans Therapy Hour, and I'm here with fellow crazy veteran, Green Beret personified, Mr. Cloak and Dagger himself, David Lucier. So, David, tell us how crazy you are.
Well, it all started on a cold winter day in 1948.
Well,
I don't know.
St. Louis, man. It was a dark and stormy
It was
night.
a dark and stormy night.
So you got into, you were kind of a roustabout in high school and got.
Yeah, I mean, I was, you know, and like you, I mean, we're just a couple of years off, but you know, it's post World War II.
Yeah.
It's